Having agency is defined as the capacity of individuals to act independently and to make their own free choices. Tune in to get an inside look at the inspiring uphill climb of businesswomen from around the world. I'm your host, Cheryl Gillihan, and this is Woman-Owned Agency.
Maiya, I am so excited to talk to you today. It has been years actually since we've seen each other, and we first met at a B Corp event because both of our organizations are public benefit corporations and B Corps. And I just love everything that you do, and I've been following you for a really long time now, and love that we can finally get together for this conversation so that we can talk a little bit more about you and your entrepreneurial journey and Mangrove. So tell us more about your organization and a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. So I am the CEO and founder of Mangrove Web Development. We are as you said, a B Corp, sort of purpose-driven digital agency. We specialize in doing custom WordPress and other platforms, but custom content design and development for purpose-driven organizations. And yeah, we are a fully remote team. I'm based in Truckee, California, and our team is all over the world.
That is really awesome. Do you have an origin story for your company?
I do, yeah. So I actually studied international development. I worked for a nonprofit in San Francisco that did volunteer trips in Thailand and Tanzania. I went to Tanzania leading some of the volunteer trips. While I was working on that organization, the classic nonprofit, I was kind of doing 10 different jobs, and one of them was managing the website. And I was really enjoying doing that. And while I was in Tanzania, I was just feeling like the work that we were doing as an organization there was really more for the volunteers and not as much for the folks who were on the ground, and felt like I was playing around with websites at the time, and there was a guy who was trying to collect donations to build a dam in the village that they were where he lived. And there were volunteers who were happy to donate, and they just needed sort of a way to complete the transaction, especially if the volunteers went back and had others who wanted to contribute. And so I put up like a really simple little page for him with a PayPal donation link, and just felt like that was a really direct way to help someone who was already on the ground doing work that he knew was important for the community, had the language skills, all the connections so that really sparked me to keep working on this kind of growing interest in website development. And I was completely self-taught, just spent a lot of nights Googling things, and actually even had like a CSS book at the time. And was, after I did some freelance projects, and then somehow convinced this small company at the time, Computer Courage in Berkeley, to hire me as their first developer. So they were transitioning from being an IT company to doing websites. And so it was just three of us at the time, and now they're a 20+ person company. But I worked there. I learned, kind of built all of my WordPress skills there. This was in 2006. So WordPress was really just a very blog-oriented platform. And we were just starting to explore the boundaries of what it could do as more full-service CMS solution. And then we just kind of all figured it out together. And then after a couple of years there, I just was feeling antsy being in an office. I ended up doing a website as a side project for some friends who owned a hostel in Panama. And I went to Panama as a trade for doing the website. I was there for a couple weeks, came back, quit my job, parted ways really amicably with my boss, and said I need to just go and live in Panama for a little while and work from there. So went back down there, was basically just hanging out at the hostel, living in a little apartment down the street, and just freelance from there. And I built my freelance career there, which eventually became Mangrove. And that's where I actually took a picture of this little mangrove tree that ended up being the silhouette for our original logo. And that's really where Mangrove was born. And I, over time, just kind of gathered up more and more, collaborators who now make up our team, which is about 15 people. So,
which is amazing. Congratulations on the growth.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think we instantly connected when we met. I was so drawn to you and your story, in part because mine is very similar. Like I didn't necessarily like go to school for tech or think that I was going to be a designer. Well, actually, I did go to school for design, but I realized that it was a very competitive field because really design back then was advertising and marketing.
Yeah.
And I really just didn't want to be in that space because I would see somebody else's design and say, oh my gosh, don't pick mine. Like theirs is so much better. And I was like, I'm never going to make
Yeah.
money in this field. But I had, some of those skill sets. But when technology started to evolve and websites started to become a thing, I was taught myself, HTML, CSS, just like you. But I think the difference for me is that I got into it, then I got out of it, and then I got back into it. And when I got back into it in 2010, I still questioned for several years, like, is technology where I need to be? Or do I need to be a volunteer, in a mission, hands in it, feet on the ground, closer to what I felt like would be impact? But I came to the same realization that you did, that it could make such a difference just putting this tool in the right people's hands. The impact is exponential then. And so when you gave them that donation site, it feels like a small thing to do, but then it has this potential for like long lasting impact, and the potential for growth. And I finally came to that realization, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I can't imagine not being in this space now. And it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun to see that and to hear the stories behind the scenes of what people do with it.
Totally. Yeah. And I remember just feeling kind of overwhelmed by the international development space and the policy world. And just, a lot of folks that I studied with are working in all these different capacities that just didn't click with me as much as doing the technical and creative pieces. I just really enjoyed that, and it made sense to me, and I loved doing it. And so it just like was kind of a natural progression for me to do that. And at some point my boss at the nonprofit said, like, well, you're going to have to choose international development or web development. And here we are. I think that's a bunch of BS, to be honest. And now we're in this space in which, like, we named our organization Mangrove partly because the roots of mangrove trees support all these organisms to like sort of grow and thrive within it. And I feel like we're creating this infrastructure in which people who have these deep skills in international development or political science or social impact or environmental impact or whatever it is, like they have all those skills developed that I am not as adept at, and we are able to augment what they're doing by creating some sort of platform for them to put their work out into the world, or for them to make connections or partnerships or get clients or customers or whatever it is. And that just feels a lot more natural to me, and like it's making an impact than anything else I could be doing.
Yeah, it feels like we've invented our jobs, really, because 20 years ago I would not have said that this is what I'll be doing. Could not even fathom it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2022, and I've told my daughters, like, follow your passions, do good in the world, and invent your own career, because that's where we are as a community now.
Yeah.
And so we really can collaborate and do anything. And I think this is part of the reason, I love connecting with you and other women-owned agencies, is we have the ability to build upon each other's strengths and, support each other in our weaknesses, and really collaborate and work together. Maybe not directly on a project, but indirectly, we do work together in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we were speaking about this a little bit offline, but we tend to partner and collaborate and connect with so many organizations that on paper would really seem like they were competitors. And the interesting thing about like the creative and tech world is there's so many, it's changing all the time. And there's also so many nuances around like what strengths you have within the organization, what tech stack you prefer, what, you know, even just what your availability is at the time. And we're constantly working in this kind of like umbrella of Mangrove with all these collaborators and partners that we sometimes pull in to work with on projects where we can really support each other to do better work together. We, you know, tech is changing all the time. I mean, I haven't coded on any client projects since my oldest was born, and he's just turned 5. And so, you know, I'm relying on my team now to keep us in the know on like what technologies we should be using and how we should be approaching our work, and what sort of the best tech stack and new methodologies are that are out there. But we're also constantly exchanging information with our partners, collaborators, friends, like yourself, and, you know, connecting and just throwing things out there like, hey, who's using this, like what roadblocks are you hitting with it, is, you know, is this new thing really worth exploring, like what purpose does it serve, what are the best practices in accessibility, how do you implement that, what is this whole thing about greening the web and sustainable web practices, and you know, there's a couple of folks who are really laser focused on that and have shared a lot of resources. So there's just like so much to hold your arms around, and I think that we've benefited so much from just having these open conversations with folks in our industry, and creating this whole collaborative kind of community together.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful. I mean, I know that there have been things that you've publicly posted, or that, you know, our B Corp community has publicly posted, that has been beneficial to me from a learning perspective as well. And it's also opening up room for that conversation. Like, we all speak the same language, but it's also one of those things where I can kind of evaluate at what point do I stop asking clients if they want certain things, you know, like, does this need to be, you know, ADA compliance, for example, and what are your accessibility needs? You know, there's a certain point where I'm like, well, as an organization, if we care about this and we know the policies are coming, and we're somewhat in the know on those things because of the communities that we're involved in, then as an organization, we should get to a point where it's just like, well, that's just going to happen. That's just, that's the way we're going to do it. Kind of like, it's going to be responsive because that's a thing now. It has been a thing for a while.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny when clients sometimes will ask and like, can you make sure it works on mobile? And I'm kind of like, yeah, we've been doing that for 10 years.
And it's no longer a question anymore, you know, and there are certain things like that. I think for us, greening the web is one of those kind of newer conversations that we tried to be huge advocates for when we became climate neutral. But we realized like the consumer doesn't care yet. We realized that they're not buying from us because of that. And so it's just something we're going to do, and it's just an extra perk for them that it is. And one of the things I love, they may care.
One of the things that I love about the sort of sustainable web practices, and we're learning a lot about it too. It's one of the things we're trying to focus on more as an organization this year, the last year, and before we were trying to wrap our arms around accessibility best practices and what our offerings were around that, and sort of offering, you know, close to level A as our standard, and now we're shifting focus to sustainability best practices. But one thing I love about it is there is a lot of overlap with just like basic usability and performance best practices and SEO best practices, and like just having like a lightweight, efficient site in which you're not building more into it than you need serves a lot of different purposes. And then there's ways to optimize it for all of those different things. But we're also just trying to figure out how, you know, how we gently steer clients in that direction. And as you were saying, if they don't sign on to it completely yet, we can still kind of get partially down that road and accomplish a lot of the other important things to the project on the way.
Absolutely. So share a little bit more about your specialty at Mangrove.
Yeah, so we've been doing WordPress for a really long time, me personally and our team. So I would say that doing like custom WordPress sites for purpose-driven organizations, and especially women and BIPOC-led organizations, is our sweet spot. We do build on other platforms. We've been doing some Webflow over the past year and a bit. We will build on different stacks as needed, but our go-to tends to be WordPress. And we do some like more custom API integrations on top of that. We customize the backend a lot. We like to set things up in a way that will be really useful for our clients over time, and just really be mindful of how we can set up the site so that it's a really flexible tool for the client, as well as serving the end user effectively, and just make sure that we're building in all the different pieces that will allow someone to really harness the power of their website and let it grow with their company.
Now, one thing I love about WordPress is it is user friendly after we hand it over. So we can make a completely custom site, custom application. At this point, a lot of things, when you're adding in all the integrations, it becomes an application or a community. And when we do that, the ability for an organization to still carry that forward is really wonderful. Do
and
you
it
have
changes too, like, sometimes our clients are a lot more technically or design oriented, and they want more customization and control on the back end. And sometimes it's like a nonprofit where there's 3 different interns editing. And so we try to take that into account as well, of like how we set it up so it's really manageable over time.
Yeah, those are important factors for sure. Do you have a recent project that you've launched that has been really special?
Yeah, actually, we did a project for an organization called Take on Wall Street, and it's called Is Our Economy Fair? And it addresses the predatory economic power of big banks, and sort of walks through the history of our financial systems, and kind of the inherent power structures and racist history as it developed over time. And so we developed this tool that is kind of an educational tool. The website is isareconomyfair.org, and it's an interactive learning hub for their audiences. And so they walk through different historical timelines, and the Take on Wall Street team uses it as they do workshops and sort of train folks on their side for different political advocacy projects and just educational projects.
I love that. And if you're anything like me, you learn so much every time you're partnering with organizations like this. There's so much content we have to consume, and so much we have to understand about their mission and their values and the goals of the project, that we end up learning so much about the sector and the space, and just things that we might have not had our eyes open to before.
Yeah, and this one in particular, there's such a depth of information. I mean, I could spend hours and hours on this site that I haven't even had time to fully absorb yet. So I recommend checking it out. It's pretty illuminating.
Yeah, I think it was about 7 years ago that I met an organization, and I partnered with them for one of their prototypes. And it was the first time that I had ever heard somebody say that when I put money into my bank, I'm investing in myself. Like when you're saving money, you're investing in yourself, because of the interest or whatever that you get. But I mean, it's minimal, but still there's a level of like investment there by saving money. And she had said to me, when you invest in yourself, you should also invest in your values. That money doesn't sit in the bank. Know the values of your bank and where they're actually spending that money in the community or in whatever they're investing in, so that when you invest in yourself, you also invest in your values. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. Yeah, actually, one of the things that was really striking for me when we became a B Corp is, one of the parameters was asking about where your money is, where you're banking, and for whatever reason, it's just something I hadn't really deeply thought about before. We're still a small growing company. We didn't have huge sums of money like going through the bank anyway, but it still matters. And we ended up moving all of our banking to Beneficial State Bank, which is a B Corp bank. And I remember like that, really stood out to me as something that I hadn't considered as being something that we could make more sustainable or progressive about our organization, and it was an important factor. And so just hearing that really reminds me of the ways in which you can kind of keep digging into the corners of your organization, some of them a lot more obvious than others, but to discover sort of the ways in which you're interacting with the world, and how you can have an impact in all these different interactions.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're learning something all the time. I wasn't the original owner of Cause Labs. I wasn't even the original CEO of Cause Labs. I kind of stepped into different roles over different times. And I not only learned a lot, working within the company, but then, leading the company and now owning the company. I learned new and different things all the time. And so when people ask, like, what have you learned about owning a company? I'm like, where do you want me to start?
Yeah.
I feel like it's something new every single day. But there is one question that people ask me, and I'm sure you get asked this also, and I would love for you to share.
Mhm.
What's your answer when people say, why are you a B Corp? Like, you have to pay to be certified, and you have to go through this grueling process of doing the audit and getting
Yeah.
all of the information and tracking all of your measurements. And so why do you do it?
That's a good question. The first thing that came to mind is sort of like, we can't not do it. And I think that I remember talking to some folks in the early days who had were some of the early B Corp adoptees, and kind of hearing from them what it was all about, and how you lead a purpose-driven organization, and just kind of thinking like this really resonates with what I feel like we're already trying to do, but I don't have the parameters or the accountability to do this properly. And so it felt like a really natural thing to kind of solidify the direction that we were already going in. And it is a lot of work. I was just working on our annual report that we do each year. But it's also great to have a benchmark and that level of accountability to keep measuring, and then also to keep being pushed towards creating a more impactful business. And there's been a lot of conversation and support and resources over the last year 2 years, especially from B Lab, around racial justice. I know it's something that they've been focusing on internally a lot. That's been helpful, amongst other resources within the B Corp community and beyond, in terms of us understanding how we need to move forward with our own diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. And there's just different things like that, where I don't know if I would have the bandwidth or sort of the understanding of how to best move forward in making our organization more progressive, more diverse, more supportive. And I think that we need the B Corp framework and the community in order to keep moving forward. And it's hard work, but it's just like, it's like brushing your teeth. You just have to do it. You just keep doing a little bit every day, and then you just keep moving forward. I just can't imagine not doing it. And we're it's really been helpful for us to just actualize like where we thought what we thought we were as a purpose driven digital agency, and just created a parameters in for us to keep moving forward and keep checking in and making sure that we're doing things the best we can.
I love your answer. I love that you said we can't not do it. It's so simple, and when I think about the answer that I give to that question, it's just about as long as yours with all the learnings and resources. And, people are like, do you make more money because of it? And like, no, but that's not why we do it. Maybe it makes recruiting a little bit easier, but not really. Maybe it's recruiting the right people to be mission aligned with us. But you can't not do it. I love that, because I like to tell people, once I learn something, I can't unknow it, and once I'm aware that there's an issue that I need to tackle with my organization, I can't not tackle it. I have to take care of it, And so some of the accountability that it holds us to, some of the things that we measure or don't measure, I think that's been the most important part, is that I realized there was so much that I was not measuring that I could, that aligns with our values and aligns with the things that we care about. And that I believe business, just doing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, if we all did that, imagine the impact. It's like putting pennies in the penny jar, and I'm just one organization and I'm just putting my pennies in, but you're another one and you're putting your pennies in, and just eventually it's going to make the difference that we want to see. So I love that so much. Thank you for sharing. Well, are there any women-owned organizations that you partner with that you'd like to give a shout out to today?
There are so many we work with, so I'm not going to do a whole laundry list of them. However, one organization that has helped us a lot over the past year has been Hella Social Impact, which you might be familiar with. Lynn Johnson, she's a pretty incredible sort of guiding light in the B Corp community and beyond. And we've worked with their organization to do a lot of DEI work over the past year plus. And so in the spirit of highlighting women who are intriguing and powerful, I'd definitely like to mention her as someone you should connect with if you haven't already.
Yeah, Lynn is definitely inspiring.
Yeah.
And I haven't connected with her for this yet, but I might do that. So thank you for sharing.
No worries.
So thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your story and more about Mangrove and what you do. And I look forward to collaborating in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Cheryl.